But today, we're going to be talking about gambling, beyond the bet. Tonight's lesson will be about all things gambling, giving up money for the chance to get something of value. What is gambling? It's an ancient racket, as I say. It's been around, well, since humans have been around. The earliest six-sided dice go back to about 3000 BC, so we're talking about 5,000 years ago. Gambling in some form, or at least dice, which kind of implies the existence of gambling, go back at least 5,000 years. And these even evolved from the astragali, the ankle bones of sheep, which were actually used for fortune telling, and that goes back thousands of years earlier. So it's been around for a very, very long time. Lotteries have actually been around for 4,000 years. We had already advanced to the concept of lotteries 4,000 years ago, rudimentary style, but are recorded at least as early as 2300 BC. Most of these were actually run by the government to help fund state projects. Well, ancient governments, kingdoms, that kind of thing. Later on, for example, they would help build the Great Wall of China. So much like today, state-run lotteries being used to bolster the economy or industry or infrastructure. That goes back 4,000 years. Some of the use of gambling was originally divination. It was used in ritual. Believed that the gods decided on these kinds of things. Anything that involved chance. Well, if you won, you were favored. If you lost, you were, well, not so favored. D&D was not the origin of Dice Dragon, although maybe they were playing some kind of ancient Dungeons and Dragons type game. Or maybe they were just actually fighting dragons. I don't know. I wasn't there. Sports betting, which is something we're going to touch on in this lesson as well, actually goes back 2,000 years. Naturally, things like the Olympic Games, the original ones, and the Colosseum and stuff, people would bet on that. There was big money to be made in doing so. Also something that was then influenced by fortune, destiny, the gods, the fates. Playing cards are actually over 1,000 years old as well. The earliest evidence of playing cards actually on paper, going back to the 9th century in China. But this even goes back farther because they probably evolved from dominoes. Essentially are the same kind of thing. One specific square or tile with some point value on it. Casinos are actually also over 400 years old. They're getting close to half a millennia old. The first casinos, first gambling houses, there was the first official regulated gambling house in Ridotto, Venice, Italy, called the Ridotto, 1638. And they created this regulated version to control the gambling that was happening during the Carnival season. Prize cards aren't older, Dragon? Yeah, I think well, there's also the possibility that they are older and we just don't have evidence for it. Because if they are proper paper playing cards, they'd probably be destroyed by now. Most of them. But yeah, the tiles, wood or metal or glass or precious metals, sometimes used for tiles, those probably go back much farther. Yeah, I think with the Ridotto, there were some kind of casino or like gambling house or place where people would go to bet on things. The first regulated one, though, was 1638. The first official one that we know of. All this stuff is just, this is how far back we know it goes. But humans have definitely been wagering things for a long, long time. Online gambling, though, is about 30 years old, since about the dawn of the internet. Since we've always been gambling, As soon as online becomes a thing, we start gambling online. And it has turbocharged gambling, just like the internet has done with everything. So why does gambling work? Why do we do it? The long and short of it, Ralph says, is that our stupid monkey brains are bad at math. In a sense, that's very true. Or we can be very good at math, but just very dumb at understanding its application. Has found that the earliest D20 goes back to 300 BC. It makes sense that it would be pretty old. There are other shapes besides square that humans could put numbers on. So why does gambling work? What does it do to us that makes us want to do this? Well, as you might imagine, as with most things that can be considered addictions if they become an obsession, it gives you an exceptionally high dopamine release. It feels good. Yes, Loresno, it feels good to do. It's fun. So, people like it. Wins feel very important. We still have this sort of subconscious belief in fate or destiny or luck, whatever people want to call it or interpret it as. So when we win, we feel very favored. We feel very fortunate. It feels like more than just a win. And the anticipation is huge. It's, of course, stimulating in some fashion, but the anticipation of the outcome is all excitement and dopamine release itself. And the people who want you to gamble, well, obviously, they're going to market it as very exciting and colorful. Think about a slot machine. Think about a slot machine. Picture yourself in a casino and a row of slot machines, and what that feels like, what that looks like, what it sounds like. The music is ringing out, sounds are chirping, bright colors, flashing lights, stimulating images on the screens now. They're usually video versions. The mechanical versions themselves have this sort of magnetic pull. The feel and the sight of the gears turning and the wheels spinning, all in conjunction with that anticipation. Will I win? Will I lose? How much will I get? And yes, slots are very toddler-coded. It is a exceptional version of the jingling keychain. Hello, Sal. Welcome. Howdy. So it really works in conjunction with already existing draw of gambling. There's also competition and challenge to yourself and to others. If it's you versus the machine, or you versus fate or luck, if it's just a number draw or something, even if it's not directly against another person, there's a challenge aspect. When you lose, you want to recoup that loss. If other people are betting on it, you want to be better than them. You want to feel more lucky or privileged than them, or favored. And of course, when you're doing gambling that is against another person, then there's definitely a sense of competition and challenge. That'll get us into our two different types of gambling. Talk about in just a second. Ren is saying that it's making you realize they need to stop playing Genshin. Star Rail. Well, we haven't even gotten to that part yet, so buckle up. Of course, it's also a great sense of escapism. If it's, say, a game that you're gambling on, like poker or blackjack or something, you're really sort of wrapped up in that world of the game, the challenge. And even, say, a simple ticket draw, a lotto ticket. The The feeling in your mind of, gosh, what if I win? Fantastical escape for just a moment. And as we'll touch on later in sports betting, some of these make you feel like you are a part of some kind of bigger thing, a game. You're part of the fun, you're part of the action. Also, of course, that applies to the game gambling that we'll talk about. Gambling also lets you start small. There's a lot of easy intro points. And in many of these modern examples in sports betting, you can get started with no money. You can get your first bet free. Think about the marketing tactics we've talked about in previous lessons, like alcohol and vaping. Now, all these marketing techniques are very similar. Yes, many people do go bankrupt, Raven, hoping that they can win just once, or in some cases winning and then blowing it all. Yeah, you can start small, and those losses, if they are even significant at all, will be relatively small. And of course, there's that big potential. But it does a lot of stuff to your brain. As we've talked about, again, in those previous lessons, there is a physiological response. One of these studies, for example, you see these brain scans. I don't get too deep into the science. This is a skills-based health class, but it's pretty interesting to think about. A study found that there was increased connection between the ventral striatum, the reward area in our brain, and your prefrontal cortex, the thinking and planning area. There was reduced activity in the thinking and planning area. So let me break that down a little simpler. There was more connection, more information going back and forth between the thinking and planning area of your brain and the reward area of your brain. But there was reduced activity, thinking and planning section of your brain. What might that mean? What might that be doing? The outcome of that. And Rao kind of touched on this a little earlier. In a way. That's something I responded. Interesting application there. Thinky Planny just starts rubber stamping whatever makes reward brain happy. Maybe that's the case. Perhaps we think we're smart at math. Is lack of sleep one of the byproducts? Well, gambling addiction or other kinds of addiction, yeah, will have an effect on your sleep for sure. Particularly with game gambling, I mean, if you're staying up late and playing it, then there's all the blue light and the stimulation in your brain, making it hard to sleep. Yeah, I can see some connections there. And you can read more about that particular study shown here if you want. But you can see in the middle section here, these PG patients, the problem gambling patients. A lot more of these blue connections than in the controls. Yeah, Thinky Planny stops working our implementation of our math skills. I want to mention something called the Pantolotariat. Maybe you've heard of this. I was fascinated when I first read about it. The Pantolotariat. I want to mention it because it's a potentially good application of the idea of gambling. But the Pantolotariat is a lottery in Norway, I believe, where empty bottles and cans recycled through a reverse vending machine may be converted into a stake in a national lottery. It's where you can go put your cans and bottles, instead of in one of those machines that gives you like 5 cents per can, it gives you a drawing into a national lottery. So if you recycle more there, you don't get any upfront reward. You don't get the 5 cents per can. You get a potential later reward. between 50 to 1 million kroner, which is between $5 and $100,000 US. I think that's just a fantastic, strange idea, an interesting application of the idea of gambling / lottery, because it is still gambling. This is a lottery. You are taking some asset you have, which is the can or bottle. It might be considered trash by some, but you could get money for it. And instead, you are using it to try to get a potential future reward. Wanted to try it when you first read about it, Ren? Yeah, I do too. I already want to do it. It already makes me want to do that. I was going to buy things that come in bottles and cans anyway, right? And Raven, your mom once got a $5 lotto ticket and got $1 from it and was happy with it. Yeah, exactly. The win feels like a win regardless. And I think I want to make sure to remember that when I get into the gaming part. But there are a lot more modern methods out there now because of the rise of the internet. Disastrous as it has been for the human race. Because there is, of course, the nightmare rectangle in your pocket, connecting you to everything and everyone at all times. So why not connect you to gambling? This, of course, gives you online 24/7 access to gambling. Of all kinds. Because frankly, some of those shovelware app games are essentially gambling. Using real-life currency for the chance to get some sort of digital product. It also allows instant transactions. What does that mean? Why is that a big deal? Because it means you get the results if you want them, if it's something that is instant, like a game. Get the results instantly. So if you win, you get the sensation, that dopamine rush that I won, I got something. But because you're not actually plopping down real-life hard currency out of your hand, you don't feel the loss. It doesn't hit you. You get less conditioning out of it. You know, when you are training a dog or a child, maybe not a child. When the child does something wrong and you tell them that they did it wrong, hey, don't do that, that's bad. That conditions them to say or feel, I shouldn't do that, that's bad. You touch something hot, you get the negative consequence, you burn yourself. You don't want to do that anymore. But it's the idea that when you do punish someone for something, you do it right away. You don't wait. Right? Because you want to connect the punishment to the thing that was done wrong. But there's so much distance between your loss on a gambling app and actually feeling it in your wallet. There's less conditioning. And of course, we've talked about this in our social media lesson. We're already in doom scrolling all the time. Our brains are primed for the idea of scrolling through our phone, of always looking, having something to do with our thumbs, constantly stimulating our brain with bright flashing colors. And there are a lot of influencers, celebrities, athletes now hyping up online gambling, giving it legitimacy, hyping it up. It feels like something cool people do. And this goes to the sports betting that I want to talk about quite a bit in the lesson. There will probably be sports betting ads the next time we have our movement break. I've been seeing them on Twitch and YouTube quite a bit lately. Ads for sports betting apps are everywhere right now. And there's a ton of them. You've probably seen FanDuel apps and DraftKings, which is everywhere. But there's BetMGM Sportsbook, the ESPN Sportsbook. Some of the channels like ESPN, other channels, also have their own betting apps. And what is the purpose of advertising on Twitch? What demographic are they going to reach on Twitch? Is it the kind of person who goes to the bookie at the horse race track, whatever? I don't know. I don't play Uma Musume. Are they going for that demographic, or are they going for the kind of people who watch Twitch? Young adults who love what? Gaming. They love gaming. So of course they're going to advertise this game-like thing on Twitch. Why has there been this huge rise in sports betting? Why are we constantly seeing these ads now? It's because a lot of the laws in different states have been loosening on sports betting. One of the reasons, of course, is the gambling lobbies, giving lots and lots of money to very specific people, but also saying that they'll give back to the state. They'll get a lot of tax revenue. And some of their profits they'll put back into programs to help the state, the communities, the area. For example, they've said that some of their taxable returns and their profits will go to programs to help problem gambling, to help people gamble responsibly. Well, this headline pretty much makes it clear. When Kansas lawmakers legalized sports betting, they seemingly gave lobbyists for casinos everything they wanted. That includes tax exemptions on promotional bets that are aimed at getting bettors hooked. In Kansas, there was actually taxpayer-subsidized gambling to the tune of millions of dollars. Gambling apps. And a lot of these gambling apps do free promotional offers. You know, get your first bet free. Or buy one, get, or whatever. Promotional offerings. With the promise to the states that this will bring in revenue to the state. But it hardly makes any. It barely makes a dent in the state's budget. And since the gambling programs that they're supposed to be funding with this only get a fraction of that, they're really not getting anything in return for allowing these gambling apps, these gambling companies, to make lots and lots of money off of their citizens. Many of them becoming addicted. Many of them minors. In Kansas specifically, the vast majority of the dollars are placed in a fund aimed at attracting a sports team to the state, a concept that the fund would never realistically be able to afford anyway. So, corruption is what we're saying. Gambling and corruption? Who could have possibly foreseen that? But why sports betting in particular? Why sports betting? Why has that become so prominent lately? Online gambling in general has been loosened, and why is sports betting so attractive to young people? As something that hasn't really been around that widespread for a while, where you used to have to actually go to a casino or to a bookie. Because sports are cool, allegedly, Rao says. Allegedly, yeah. What's unique about sports betting as opposed to other forms of gambling? Well, there's fear of missing out. The action is happening right there in front of you on TV, and other people are betting on it. You're already watching the sports if you are into sports. Other people around you are watching them. And they're also doing this thing where they get to be a part of the action. They get to be a part of the ritual that is Sunday football or NBA playoffs, World Series, or the World Cup, or whatever is being gambled on. We don't want to be on the outside looking in and everyone else having fun. Having fun with something that doesn't really have the stigma of drinking a lot. And hey, it doesn't do things to your body like drugs do, right? It's socially accepted and everyone is cool with it now. Not even your parents would be like, oh, you're drinking again? If they find out, oh, I bet on the Knicks to win. I mean, your dad might go, what the hell's wrong with you? The Knicks are always terrible. But it wouldn't be a big deal to them in most cases. Yes, Utopia Tree, it does do things to your brain like drugs do. Reduces the activity in your thinking and planning area, but increases it in your reward area. But one of the big reasons is there is a ton of support among celebrities and athletes. Because, for the athletes at least, gambling is good. I mean, not to do it. They obviously can't do it. They will be banned and maybe go to jail. But the existence of it works for them. Because the sports industry makes lots and lots more money when sports gambling makes lots and lots of money. And if athletes can make a bag by promoting it, they're going to do it. You've probably seen the Kevin Hart and LeBron James commercials. Probably can't avoid them. DraftKings is everywhere. But those are just two. Jamie Foxx has their own long-standing brand ambassador status for BetMGM. There's John Hamm, Neil Patrick Harris, Wayne Gretzky, Shaquille O'Neal, David Ortiz, Derek Jeter, Barry Sanders, Kevin Garnett, Patrick Mahomes, Drake, Snoop Dogg. All of these people and many more, Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, they've all had some kind of promotional tie-in or ambassador status for some kind of gambling app or company. And if you've seen the constant spam of things with stake on them, S-T-A-K-E, with the little watermark in Twitter videos that try to go viral, and then there's always the community note that says, this contains an illegal or unlisted or something advertisement for a gambling company, which is not allowed on the terms of service. Yeah, that's the one that Drake is with. So do with that information what you will. Yeah, Neil Patrick Harris, not your heckin' wholesome chungus. And Americans love to bet on sports. In the last few years, since about very early in 2020, sports betting has begun to skyrocket. I wonder what might have happened in that area. What might have happened in this area of the graph that could have led to such a big spike in online gambling? It's a mystery. Shorter to list what didn't happen. Yeah, that's true. There was a very big cascade of events that happened there. Yeah, it's causing me to do a big think. Doing me a heckin' big think. Kids especially. Why might this have affected kids especially during the COVID era? Young people, maybe high school age to college age, during this time period. Especially those who already sort of enjoyed sports. Boredom, lack of stimulation, Ren says. Very good. Yes, exactly. I think, in particular, not being able to do things communally, not being able to do things in a social sense, and if you can do things with your friends, some sort of online capacity, that still feels like it's connected to real-world events. Hey, I can see why that would be appealing to a lot of young people. And sports betting apps are a big problem for young people, especially young men. You'll hear about it a lot in schools as a teacher. The boys, especially the athletes, talking about their bets, talking about if they hit their parlay. And I'm thinking, you really shouldn't even know what a parlay is yet at that age. But you're already playing them. Yeah, of course, obviously parents not responsible watching their children. But that's a good point in that this is a lot harder for parents to detect. Not like your kid comes home and you find a pack of cigarettes, or they come home smelling like weed, or you find that there's alcohol missing from your liquor cabinet. This is very easy for a young person to hide. There just aren't that many physical indicators. And until it starts becoming a real problem, there might not be that many observable indicators at all. But 6% of American college students suffer from a serious gambling problem. That isn't just the number of them that are gambling at all, or perhaps gambling too much. It's 6% that have a serious gambling problem. So over 1 in 20. So if you're at that age, think of 20 people you know, and maybe at least one of them would have a serious gambling problem. Again, yeah, that's just the number that have already gotten to a point where it's a serious problem. Ah, Safety Kuma has brought their class on a field trip to mine. Seatbelts, everyone.
This be a normal field trip?
No, never a normal field trip. Thank you so much for joining me and bringing your class on a field trip to mine. Only you also thought it would be higher. Yeah, but yeah, still, 1 in 20 college students have a serious gambling problem. Well over half of them that gamble regularly are pathological gamblers. You know what, Safety Kuma? We are actually going to have a segment in this lesson specifically about gacha games. How does it get people hooked and so easily? Like I said, there are troubling youth rates, especially in sports betting. Why is that? We've talked about a few reasons. We've talked about a few reasons why. It's a sense of social connection, something to do that is socially acceptable. It's not drinking or smoking, something that might get them in trouble, obviously. Because of the easy access of online 24/7 apps, instant transactions. Specifically, though, for sports betting, like I said, these are being marketed very aggressively by cool adult people that they care about. Influencers, a lot of not VTubers, but streamers. They are talking about sports betting apps. They are partnering with sports betting apps. For sports betting specifically, there is a sense of needing to be a part of it through a weird sense of masculinity. Especially if their peers are doing it. A lot of peer pressure to get in on the bet, to be a part of that action. And of course, we're raised on gaming, aren't we? In all kinds of gaming, whether there's gacha aspects or not, there is a risk-reward loop. You're always risking something for the hope of some kind of reward. We're already primed to experience things as gamified. And if we gamify gambling, well, those apps are exactly like that. If you're in a sports betting app, they will treat you like they are, or like you are playing a game. You know, with ranks and badges and all that kind of stuff. Very easy to avoid the regulations on sports betting if you are a young person. Like I said, it's easy to hide from your parents. No physical object that it can be linked to. And people aren't really expecting gambling to be a problem for a young person. Even though 1 in 20 college-age students have a serious gambling problem. Yes, Bloody Cran, what can I do for you? These sports betting apps get people hooked early and often. Because you can do it every day. There's always another sporting event happening. You can check on it anytime you want. It's right there in your nightmare rectangle. On demand, 24/7. Ease of entry is a very good Way to put it, Bloody Crayon, yes. Very easy to get involved. You can do it very cheaply. Sometimes they offer free bets your first time, free credits, or they'll double your bet for you the first time. And because it can be done from your phone, it's extremely convenient. And you can bet a little bit to start off with. You can bet as little as you want. You can get those hits very cheaply. You can get that dopamine rush for a very small amount of money, and then it just becomes more and more that you need to put in to get the same result. Ease of entry. So before we get into the gacha aspect, let's define if gacha actually is gambling. Is gacha fully actually gambling? Do you think it is? Do you think it meets the definition of gambling? These three words you see on the screen that I'll define in just a second. Hefty Kuma says yes, absolutely. Ren agrees. Empress as well. There are three core elements of gambling. Three things that have to be a part of it in order for it to be considered gambling. The first is consideration. There has to be an element of consideration. That means the cost. That means something of value, whether it's currency or some other asset. Like you can bet your watch on something. It can also mean a membership fee or a subscription, some kind of waiver or purchase, anything that you put in that you are willing to exchange. That's why you'll see things that say no purchase necessary on a lot of sweepstakes, because they have to do that on any kind of giveaway. Otherwise, it would be considered gambling and come under gambling regulations. So there has to be consideration. The second element is there has to be chance. Some element of unpredictability has to exist, where you could get something or nothing at all. There are two types of this, and that's pure chance. Something like the lottery, where you just get a random number and you don't know, nobody knows, what the number that will be to win. Roulette is another example of a pure chance. Something that is absolutely pure chance. You don't really have any way to decide. The other type is something that involves some kind of skill. So the classic example would be blackjack or poker. There is some element of skill involved. You can increase your chance of winning, not just by putting more money in, but by being better at whatever the gambling is. It doesn't mean that you're going to have better odds than not, but it does mean that you'll have better odds. Sports betting also falls under this possibility. If you know the game better, if you are someone more familiar with how the game is played and who's good and who's bad, and you're paying attention to the injury reports and watching the trends and listening to the analysts, you might have a better chance. It's better than random. Bloody Crayon, you're guilty for blackjack. You learned to count, keeping track of the face cards and the high and low cards. A way to increase your chance, so there is some element of skill or knowledge involved. The third element that has to exist, but there has to be some kind of prize. Something of value, currency, an asset, some kind of credit that you could win. This includes, for example, say, a weapon skin, or a customizable outfit for your character, some kind of cosmetic, unlocking a character. That is something of value. It would cost you money to do otherwise, to get it otherwise, to purchase it to unlock. But you're purchasing the chance to get it. So that does count. as a prize. So, gacha does have consideration. There is something you're giving up. Real life currency, usually. Even if that means being filtered through an in-game currency. Just because you're buying Stellar Jade or credits, those cost money, so you are spending some real asset. There is chance because you put those Star Rail passes into the slot, you could get something, you could get garbage. And there's the prize, the thing you could get. Unlocking Saber, for example. Or getting the blue camo for your H&K in Call of Duty. I don't know, I don't play those games. So there are many different types of gacha games. And what is a gacha game? Some of you might know where the idea of gacha comes from. Where the word comes from even. I think it was one of you who told me. Where the idea of gacha comes from. From the gachapon. Exactly, Pandagiri, the gachapon. But there are many types of games that have this kind of mechanic. Where you put in some kind of currency, real life currency, into a game where you get credits or just directly purchase. But there are card battling games that have this. There's hack and slash type games. There's idle games. Not idle like Japanese pop idols, but, idols. Open world adventure type games. Rhythm games. As you saw in some of those clips, I have been playing Honkai Star Rail myself. And I actually like the game. I haven't spent any money on it. I've been free to play, but our new friend Ren here has been giving some advice. Because they're a veteran player. They know a whole lot about the game. I've been very grateful for their input. I wonder though, how they've come to know so much. Loot boxes also count. Loot boxes in games like Call of Duty, Overwatch, that kind of thing, they also do still count. That is gambling. It is still gambling. You are consideration. You have consideration. What you're giving up. There is the chance involved. And there is a prize involved. Now, some of the reasons this works so well, it's ease of access. It's low barrier for entry. You're already playing the game. You really want that item. I could very easily get myself a couple chances at a cool thing. And it's only a couple bucks. That's nothing. That's just a order at Starbucks. But then you do it more and more. Now you're buying 24 loot boxes for $319.99. What other aspects do you think of this kind of online gambling? Because that's what gacha and loot box is, online gambling. What other elements of it do you think are so appealing to young people? Bragging rights, Bloody Cran says, that is an excellent point. I literally have that on the next slide. Very good. Oh, let me stream opening all those boxes, Ralph says. Oh, that ties into community and being able to show off what you're doing. And look at me. I've got money for this game. And look at all the cool stuff I have in it. Gamba, could it be a form of unhealthy coping? Ren asks. I think so, and I think that's common to a lot of addictions. Unboxing videos are already a thing, so it's a natural extension, Ralph says. Absolutely. One of those things that we're primed for. We like watching unboxing. It's cool. We get to vicariously experience someone enjoying that chance. There's a lot of cool artwork involved. Whether it's loot boxes or gacha stuff. But here's another thing. There's also significant sunk cost, if you're familiar with what sunk cost means. when you've put money into something and you haven't gotten what you wanted yet. But do you give up now? I've already spent all this money. What's another little more? Another little more? What's another $5? The fallacy that keeps old cars running. Yeah. You get a specific outcome in this type of game, like a character that you want specifically, and if you haven't gotten it yet, well, you want to keep spending until you get it. It's a little more in-depth than just, well, I lost money and now I'm chasing it. That's just money generally. This is something where you have a specific idea in mind, a specific weapon skin, a specific character or ability. There's also the desire to complete a set, for example. So if there's a full set of gear that you want in a game that has a loot box system, well, I've got the chest piece and I've got the greaves and I've got the helmet, but I need the gauntlets. I need the gauntlets. If I don't get the gauntlets, what's the point of having gotten all the rest of this stuff? What else about these types of games, though, works so well on a young person's brain? Well, let's check this out. There's flashing lights, of course, just like the slot machine. It's very colorful and bright all the time. There's music throughout, and I don't mean in the game. I don't just mean in the game. I mean during the actual process of engaging in the gamba part of the game. There's those big anticipatory animations, right? Where the loot box is selected and it opens up, and you have this intense sense of anticipation. What's it going to be? You're looking closely. You're paying attention. Your eyes are fixed on the door as it opens. Is the train going to give you something good? Whenever you get a win, whenever you get something good, it's played up as a huge deal. There's that big musical sting, a big flash of light, and out comes this awesome thing you got. For example, in FIFA type games where you open a pack and you get your favorite player. It's hyped up as a huge deal. But losses are minimized because you always get a consolation prize. You never get nothing. They never give you nothing. You might get a worthless light cone, but it's something. You can't say you didn't get anything out of it. Losses are minimized. They're downplayed, and wins are hyped up. Maybe you'll see that golden light, and you'll get that 5-star character, or maybe you'll get a useless 3-star light cone. So what's an example? They got a 5-star! Flashing lights, colors, anticipation. And then the release. Oh, I got something great. You never remember the losses. You never remember those 10 Star Rail Pass pulls where you got just light cones. You remember that time, holy crap, when I got my 5-star saber or whatever. Ren literally just got this pull. Maybe this was from them. Maybe this video was pulled directly from them, getting Seal. And as Bloody Cran mentioned, status and prestige. Young people are strongly influenced by this notion. They want to have status, be seen in a positive light by their peers. If you have these very rare or awesome items and characters that other people don't have, well, you're special. In some cases, there are items and such that give you an advantage in the game, so that's even more. Oh, her name is pronounced like Selah. I call her Seal because of the singer Seal. Whenever I see her in the game, I start singing "Kiss from a Rose." Bloody Cran asks if we are conditioned at an early age with trading cards and things like that. I think that's possibly a role too. We're used to trading and exchanging stuff now, which didn't really happen previously. Esports and streamers have certainly made this problem worse. streamers who do a lot of pulls or play a lot of gacha games, do a lot of loot boxes. Well, a lot of those ones, the bigger ones, they have money for this. They get paid to open those things. People are paying them. That's what a lot of people don't understand. A lot of viewers don't get it. The streamer, the big time streamer that you're watching, isn't the one paying for that Call of Duty loot box. You as the viewer are, by sending them bits and subscribing to their channel. And just by watching and giving them advertising eyes. You're the one paying for them to do that. Esports is another problem for this, but pack openings, FIFA players like that, and just makes it all feel normal. There are soccer fan kids who are losing their parents' shirt by buying up all the packs that they can. For some people, though, it becomes even more important than the game itself. The gambling aspect. Getting the character skin or whatever. It's more important than even playing the game anymore. And again, it's because there's those instant results. And you know immediately, well, I didn't get it. I can try again. I can do one more try. Again, the wins are immediate. The losses aren't felt until you go to do your budget at the end of the month. And this is why UK Gambling Commission found that most young people are aware of, at least, loot boxes and paying for things, chance in games. And over a quarter of them have used it, have done it, have done some kind of online wagering in that sense. 27% were engaged at least once in some kind of online gambling, which again includes gacha and loot box and pack opening. Buddy Cran points out many content creators pull and gamba, but their quest log is full. Why play when you can pay for it? Yeah. Why bother? Some of the warning signs. So let's talk about what can you see and observe in yourself or someone else that might indicate that they're starting to have a problem with gaming and gambling. Number one, of course, is tolerance, something common to most addictions. In fact, all of these things on this page will be core elements, things that are common to most types of addiction. And tolerance, obviously, one of the core elements of many types of addictions. Needing more of whatever it is that you're putting in, but getting less and less out of it. Preoccupation is another core element. If the person or you becomes fixated on it, you can't help but think about it throughout the day. Your thoughts become intrusive regarding whatever it is that you're addicted to. Withdrawal is another common element. If you aren't engaged in whatever that is, if you aren't under the influence of whatever it is that you're struggling with, do you experience the symptoms of withdrawal, like irritability and restlessness? Sense of gambling, for tolerance, needing more and more, or needing higher and higher amount of bets, or buying more pulls. Loss of control. That's when you do want to cut down, or you see someone saying, yeah, I'm going to do that less, but they don't. They want to, they're trying to, but they can't quite do it. If they are ignoring or downplaying the consequences, the loss of money, the loss of time that they're spending on this thing. If they or you actively try to downplay it, if someone asks, or ignore it, perhaps not just harm to your finances, but to your health, not sleeping much, might be affecting your relationships or your work or your school. And then compulsion. Doing it even when it's not giving you any pleasure, when you're not even feeling good by doing it. You're just doing it out of compulsion, or ritual, or that's just what I do. But there are some things that are unique psychological hooks in gambling. There's something called the near-miss effect, where your brain responds to almost winning as if you did win. So if you bet the over on the Packers beating their next opponent, over under 7, and they win by 6, you're like, oh, I was so close. I must be pretty good at it because I almost got it right. Or if you buy that lotto ticket and you get a couple of the numbers right, but not the main one, the big Powerball or whatever. Oh, I almost I almost made some money. And chasing losses. The belief that more gambling will fix your financial problem. Whereas, say, with another addiction like alcohol, you're not going to really fix your problem with more alcohol, but you might think you can fix your financial losses by gambling more. A big one, though, we have to mention is cognitive bias. Gamblers, people who get problems with gambling, they overestimate their odds. They begin to trust lucky streaks. Yeah, I won the last 2 times. I'm on a roll. Or they get that bad math brain and think, well, I've lost 6 times in a row. I'm definitely going to win next time. 99% of gamblers quit right before they make it big time. What's the meme? Where you're digging for the diamonds, and the diamonds are right behind the next wall, but you give up? Yeah. A lot of gamblers start to think that their skill will outweigh the weight of chance, and it just doesn't. That many gambling methods have intermittent rewards makes it really hard to quit. These randomized wins, they can create an even stronger compulsion than a consistent one. So a lot of addictions share common elements, but gambling has its own unique psychological hooks. Ren asks if PTSD can create a link to impulse gambling. It might be a way of escape, like a lot of other addictions. It might be a safe kind of thrill, give you stimulation that isn't any kind of risk, not like a drug. And yes, as Rao points out, digital gambling can also potentially worsen regular gambling. Yeah, and it's true. Some of these gacha type games, they also give you a hook by saying, well, you did lose 10 times in a row, I will increase your chance of winning. So that feeds into your cognitive bias. Well, I've put in 100 tickets and it says if I do 110, they'll double my chance of winning. Even though your chance of winning was like 0.5%, so doubling it doesn't really change that a whole lot. But it's a great psychological hook. May the odds ever be in your favor, but sadly they will always be in the house's favor. Some of the issues that are more specific to gambling, though, it's very concealable, as we mentioned earlier. There's less pressure. Again, people don't see it as big of a problem. And nobody will see the giant pile of spent disposable vapes in the back of your car. No one will see your room lined with beer cans. It's all there in your app. Your personal connection to the nightmare world through the portal of the nightmare rectangle. There's a delusion of control with gambling. Gambling is unique in the idea people have of how much they can control their gambling addiction. Again, not quite like other addictions that are drugs or alcohol, where people might understand, they might realize they have a problem. They might understand that this has a physical effect on me and I just can't stop. Many people who have problems with gambling genuinely believe that they can stay in control. There is that voice in the back of our head that tells us you're still in control. One of the other specific problems with gambling as an addiction is that it does explicit financial harm. Other addictions might not have as immediate a financial effect on a person. It might be a second-order effect. But for gambling, it is directly tied to the amount of money you spend. It is a direct financial harm. Even if you are winning sometimes, even if you are not losing a lot, you are still putting money into it one way or another. Now, in one way, we're always spending money on something. I spent money on a Streamlabs subscription so that I could multi-stream. I put money into it. I'm not getting money back. I don't make money VTubing. But I've spent money doing it. Why did I do that? Because I feel like I'm getting something out of it more than the value of what I put in. If I go to the movies, I'm spending money. But it's because I value the entertainment I'm going to get from the movie more than I valued the... How much does it cost to see a movie these days? I don't know. Probably like $200 nowadays. It's one movie ticket, Michael. How much could it be? $200? but you get what I mean. If you are still getting something out of it, more than the value of what you're putting in, okay. So what do we do about it? How do we address this problem in ourselves or others? What do you think, class? Try to think of one technique, tactic, thing you could do yourself or that you could suggest to someone else if they had an issue with gambling. Yes, Bloody Crayon. In some cases, the gambler, the person with the gambling issue, thinks that what they're doing is an investment. But that gives us our first technique, our first tactic, besides just quitting, as some of you have put. An Empress suggests maybe learn to spend their money more wisely. Yeah, that first thing that you can get as your go-to, your first option, the first thing that you should do is budget out what you're willing to spend for entertainment. This does mean doing a budget. But think about how much money each month you would be willing to accept as a loss for just entertainment. That is, money that you know you're not going to get back. Like that money you spent going to the movies. They are not going to give you the money back. Even if you get thrown out for vaping in a pregnant woman's face at the theater, you're not getting that money back. Especially for any kind of gambling where you think you're going to make money. You go play blackjack or you play the slots, you do poker, you bet on sports. You have to assume that every dime that you put into that gambling is a dime you are going to lose. Budget for it as entertainment. Assume that you will not win. It might still be fun to do, and that's fine. Absolutely. It might be fun to go out and have a few beers with your friends, even though alcohol isn't, a good thing. You're accepting a certain level of risk and a certain cost when it comes to gambling. Budget for it as such. And only budget what you can afford to lose. Find yourself some engaging alternatives, something that will satisfy that need for stimulation without the need for some kind of financial loss. Granted, it's not bad that you're playing HSR. I was playing HSR last night. I just don't spend money. Yes, Bloody Crayon suggests wean off of it with more healthier, productive addictions, kind of like smokers, eat more after quitting, but with hiking or participating in a club. A club is a great option because it's that social aspect, especially if someone has a problem with sports betting, where there is a sort of, you're betting with other people, you're betting against other people. It feels like you're a part of the action. Get yourself involved in some real-life action, especially if you can touch grass. Other satisfying alternatives. Playing a game that doesn't have gambling elements. Especially if it's a multiplayer game where you can play with other people. Unless that's like League of Legends or something, in which case, that's probably worse. Take up competitive solitaire. You can't even play Microsoft Solitaire without seeing ads. Now they make you watch ads to play Microsoft Solitaire. But of course, you should also avoid doing it while you are impaired. Any kind of drug or alcohol influence, you're going to make even less sound financial decisions, as you'll probably think is pretty obvious. But don't gamble of any kind when you are impaired in any way. And I do include any kind of gacha gambling in there. If you have a problem with gacha gambling, loot box stuff, if you play a lot of Call of Duty, don't do that under any kind of drug or alcohol. Maybe you like to smoke weed while you play Call of Duty, but are you really making sound financial decisions if you're buying loot boxes under that condition? And track how much money each month you spend on these types of activities. If you spend $10 in one day on your game or on your loot boxes or betting on Shohei Ohtani to strike out more than 5, track the amount of money you lost. Look at it each week. Look at how much that adds up. Now that does actually harm you financially more than some avocado toast, which is really good, by the way. There's nothing wrong with avocado toast, but at least you're getting something out of it instead of losing your parlay Yeah, $10 a day, $300 a month. Is that how much you're willing to spend on one type of entertainment? But keep track of all that stuff and include your time. Include the amount of time that you're spending on these things. Think about how much your time is worth. Ren's very proud of the money they spent on E3 Dan Heng, but that's different. I'm giving you a pass on that one because it's Dan Heng. And he deserves it. He's a good boy who did nothing wrong. And he deserves all the good things. Something that we need to do as a society is get better control of the marketing out there. I think you understand, and you would agree, having seen gambling ads during this stream, that it is outrageous the amount of ads there are out there for gambling, sports betting apps, targeted towards young people, which impacts primarily people who might feel the need for escapism, who might be predisposed to developing a gambling problem. We need to do things like this lesson and teach it as a risk. We need to educate people about it as a risk. Not that it is just something for entertainment, but educate it as a risk. Yes, it can be entertainment, but it can also be an addiction. We need to do better age verification because these apps are very easy to get around. The regulations, the age limits are very easy to get around. As long as you have a credit card, you can get around them. And because they are online, it doesn't matter where you are in the country. Some states do still have gambling, sports betting banned. But how easy is that to get around? We need to teach better tech responsibility, and we need to make the technology companies and these apps take responsibility for their actions. We mentioned that article earlier about Kansas and how Kansas lawmakers had made regulations on betting much looser under the auspices that they would be getting something out of it. Gambling profits would be put back into the state. Tax money would get put back into the state, and then that just never happens. The companies claim that they will do things like fund addiction centers, and then they never do. Yes, as Ren points out, there was a lawsuit not too long ago about minors overspending on the Hoyoverse games. Now your email must verify at least 13 to 14, and it has to show the costs of the high-value items. That's the kind of thing that we need to have. We need to make these companies take responsibility. So, remember, budget, engage, avoid, and track. Budget for entertainment. Find engaging alternatives. Avoid while impaired. And track. That's what we can do individually, and as a society we need marketing control, educate as a risk, age verification, and tech responsibility. So if you want to remember what you can do as an individual and what we can do as a society, remember, just BEAT, MEAT. Copper Huntress, what if it's a family thing that was basically passed down from your mother or grandmother? And yes, there can be a very high genetic predisposition to gambling addiction or other kinds of addiction. People can feel a a particularly strong pull from the stimulation that gambling gives. The thrill, the risk reward. Suzumiya? Well, who's Suzumiya, Rao? But yeah, remember, beat meat. I'm sorry, I didn't see anyone get my terrible joke acronym again this time. It was a little bit more veiled this time. Normally it's like goth or hemp, something like that. Oh, that's what your Suzumiya, damn it, was. Rao, I don't know who Suzumiya is. I actually also don't get a chance to watch a lot of anime either, so I feel like I am on the outside looking in of most of the cultural zeitgeist right now. School doesn't even teach these things, Jay. Exactly. I love doing lessons where the topics are things that aren't getting taught in other health classes. IRL. Like we did that mental health first aid lesson recently. There probably isn't good suicide prevention discussion in schools these days. What else can we do? What can we do when we're trying to talk to someone else? Don't shame. That's the number one thing. Don't shame the person for it. That never works in dealing with any kind of addiction. Maybe you want to just do the gentle, it's time to stop posting. But you do want to talk to them about it. Involve them in other things. Remember, the engaging alternatives were a huge aspect for dealing with it yourself. If you can help that person get involved in stuff, engaging activities, invite them to your clubs, invite them to your barbecue or whatever, do whatever you're doing. Engage them in other activities. Take them away from gambling activity. Give them other things to do. Ask open-ended questions. Ask them why they gamble. Maybe not in those words, but ask them what they like about it. What do you enjoy about it? Oh, you bet on the game? You lost? What did you get out of it? Makes them think about it. What did I get out of that? What do I enjoy about gambling? Oh, the thrill of possibly winning? But I haven't won any money. And says that they gamble in Genshin HSR because they relate to a lot of the characters. They enjoy the emotional appeal. And that is that entertainment aspect. If the entertainment is worth the amount of money being put in, and if it's something that can be afforded, then it might not necessarily be a problem. But it does have to be thought about. You have to consider it. That's why the open-ended question is important. It makes the other person have to think about it. But just talk about it. That's the other big thing you can do. Just ask. Just talk about it. Get the person thinking about it. Because again, gambling is one of those addictions that gives a person a delusion of control. They think that they are in charge. And offer your time. Just offer to be there, to talk about it. This is another addiction where if they do realize they have a problem, they can feel a lot of shame. It is something that they will want to hide. But by just talking about it with them, you've given them permission to talk to you about it. How might you ask someone, class? Get to the skills portion of this. How might you ask someone, a friend of yours, an acquaintance that you think might be struggling with gambling? What might you say? Hey, knock it off, Ralph says. I mean, that's a direct way. Let me gamble for you. No. I don't know why, but that just made me think of that stupid meme where the guy's injecting a needle, but like there's a ghostly Jesus behind him and he's like taking the needle for him. That one always weirded me out. Like, damn it, Jesus, I paid good money for those drugs. That was probably sacrilegious. Or blasphemous or something, I don't know. So, if I was someone who had a problem with, say, my Call of Duty loot boxes, how might you broach the subject? See that I'm not able to, say, go to the activity that we had planned. You know, say we're going to go to a show with our friends, but I don't have the money anymore. And you know that it's because I was spending a lot of money on my Fortnite loot boxes. Just ask me, Ren says. Flat out, why do you gamble in Call of Duty, Mr. Aegis? That's a very straightforward way to do it. Why? They'll just say, I don't know. I wanted the funny Carlton dance, or whatever they do in Fortnite. I don't know. I've never played Fortnite. Saw you online 18 hours opening at loot boxes instead of going to class today. What's up, man? You okay? When you know the answer is no, but still, you ask. You okay? Very good, Rao. Exactly. I think you carried over a great skill from our mental health first aid lesson. You said something specific. You noted an observable behavior that the person couldn't deny. You observed that they were online for 18 hours opening up loot boxes. You noted an observable behavior, and then you asked an open-ended question. So let's throw it back to you. Let's throw it back. I mean, throw it back to you. What other questions do you have? What other aspects of this would you like to talk about? Gambling and gaming. Gaming and gambling. Gamified gambling. Not sure if it would be helpful, Dr. Phil, but you tell them it's likely they'll lose interest in it anyway. That's very true. The cosmetics do nothing. The goggles, they do nothing. And yeah, it's not like other kinds of gambling where you're addicted because you think you might win money. Spending money on all this stuff, it might be a game you don't even end up playing for a lot longer anyway. When you're asking if you classically conditioned yourself into gambling. I think it's sort of like that, in that there is an immediate reward with online gambling or online game gambling. Get an immediate result. And again, because they minimize the losses, because they make the losses feel like they're not a big deal, you only really remember all that cool stuff you got, even though it cost you a bunch of money to get. And the house always wins. They could make all of those items and characters and skins you want available at a set price, and they could make a lot of money. They could make that character cost $20, and people would pay for it. But not as many people as would pay $20, $30, $40 trying to win. You end up paying more because there's that element of chance. It's a game within the game. Yeah, someday they will have to shut the servers down. Someday the sun will engulf our planet. But also remember, class, it all goes back in the box. I can't remember the name of the person offhand because, again, it has been a long time since I told this little story. But he relayed a story from when he was a kid. And it was family game night, and they were playing some board game. And he was the youngest, he was a little kid, and he was getting really frustrated that he was losing. So he was crying and kind of having a bad temper about it, and his grandmother took him aside and said, "What happens when the game is over?" It all goes back in the box. And what's left? When the game is over, it all goes back in the box, and what's left? The experience you had. The memories you had. People you played with. Did you make this memory a good one? Or did your actions make it worse? In the end, the game didn't matter. It didn't matter who won or lost. It all goes back in the box. So I like to give that little story sometimes, and you did a great job. You did a great job in our lesson. You were very active in participating. You were very engaged. But yeah, we'll play some Silksong after this, maybe some HSR. I do have some pulls myself, so we might actually do a little Gamba. But of course, this is all free to play. I've never put any money into the game yet. Yes, indeed, if you do want to have your little certificate of completion here, your digital certificate of completion, I will put one with your name on it and send it to you. You can join our Discord, and I will have that sent to you there in our link there in the chat. Of course, you can also follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky. And our YouTube channel has all of our VODs. I put all of our lessons up on there in a playlist, but of course, all of our game sessions are on there as well.